And yes, this is Read It or Skip It. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to crack open different source materials, pull out those insights, those surprising facts, basically everything you need to be really well informed. Today, though, we're doing something a bit different. We're taking a truly unsettling plunge into fiction. The book is I Will Break You by Gigi Styx. It's a dark stalker romance novel. But, this isn't just some simple story. It's packed with psychological layers, thematic depth. It really offers a unique look at trauma and obsession. So, okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to navigate this narrative where reality feels like it's constantly shifting, where obsession just takes over, and sanity itself is pushed right to the edge.
Yeah, and what's particularly compelling here, I think, is how Gigi Sticks uses that dark romance framework, but uses it to explore some really profound psychological states.
Like what specifically?
Well, we're talking about the mechanics of these really extreme relationships, right? And the lasting impact of trauma. The author is just masterful at blurring the lines constantly. Is it psychological torment? Is it something supernatural? It's disturbing, definitely, but also, incredibly insightful. It really explores the human psyche when it's under just immense pressure.
And it starts immediately. I mean, right from page 1, this novel just grabs you by the throat.
Oh, absolutely.
Our protagonist, Amethyst Crowley, her world just explodes. Right away, she wakes up bound. She's terrified by this ghostly figure of her executed lover, Zero Greaves, who's apparently right there in her bedroom.
Which is horrifying enough on its own.
Right, and as if that wasn't enough to just set your nerves completely on edge, we find out pretty quickly she's just killed an online troll, self-defense apparently.
Unburied the body.
Unburied the body in a graveyard. And here's where it gets really, really unnerving. Her home is practically in the graveyard.
Yeah, the location itself it's almost another character, isn't it? Exactly. The book, it just plunges you straight into what you can only call a gothic fever dream. That closeness to death, the constant threat of violence.
Both kinds, yeah, external and internal.
Precisely. External literal violence and that internal psychological kind. You're immediately wrapped up in these themes of trauma, obsession, and this sort of lingering sense of the supernatural.
It's suffocating.
It really is. It's not just a backdrop. It feels like it's actively participating, almost crushing Amethyst from the very beginning.
It's hard to even imagine a worse way to start your day. That immediate psychological assault must just set such a heavy tone for everything that follows. But, okay, what leads someone to connect with a figure like Zero Greaves in the first place? I mean, a notorious serial killer.
Right. Well, to understand her current nightmare, you really have to rewind. Look at the origins of this relationship with Zero. It wasn't exactly conventional.
You're kidding.
Their connection was forged through letters. They were pen pals while Zero was on death row. And these weren't just, friendly letters. The source describes them as dark, erotic, and confessional. They apparently revealed this shared and frankly disturbing fascination with death and violence.
So a relationship basically built on, extreme vulnerability and manipulation, I guess.
Absolutely. Zero is painted as very seductive, very manipulative, and Amethyst, she's described as being in this state of isolation, heavily medicated. She gets drawn into his web, so to speak.
And the letters become like a lifeline.
A lifeline, yeah, but also a weapon. They showcase Zero's possessive love, but also his absolute rage. It's intense. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights the dangerous allure of these extreme connections.
And this intense connection, these letters, they didn't stay private, did they?
No, not at all.
Amethyst actually turns this very strange relationship into viral fame. She becomes president of Zero's online fan club, starts reading his letters out loud to thousands of people, monetizing their private correspondence.
And what's really insightful there, I think, is how the novel sort of peels back the curtain on our, let's face it, morbid societal fascination with true crime.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Digital age, fan clubs, forums.
Yeah.
It doesn't just observe tragedy anymore, it can actively monetize it, distort it.
Right.
Amethyst's notoriety just explodes. She attracts stalkers, trolls, copycats. The lines just blur completely between her online persona, this killer's muse, and her actual very real suffering.
So the book forces you to kind of confront that uncomfortable idea.
Exactly, that our voyeuristic consumption of true crime can create this feedback loop. It incentivizes people to almost amplify their own trauma for an audience, which just extends their victimhood and, in a weird way, maybe even their complicity.
That's heavy. And as if her present reality isn't nightmarish enough, Amethyst's personal history is described as this patchwork of missing memories. It's layered with childhood trauma, psychiatric interventions. She's haunted by these really specific, terrifying hallucinations. Like her abuser, Mr. Lawson, appearing in mirrors, even in her bed.
The doppelganger.
And this chilling doppelganger that seems to follow her in every reflection.
And then things get even more insidious. A disturbing photo arrives. It's Amethyst as a child, restrained, being electroshocked.
Oh my God.
And it comes with threatening notes. So this isn't just a memory bubbling up. It feels like an active trigger, right? Designed to destabilize her completely.
Someone's doing this deliberately.
Well, the source material suggests it's part of a larger conspiracy. Someone wants to keep her broken and compliant.
Okay.
And on top of that, the ghostly Zero she keeps seeing. He isn't just a passive vision. He apparently weaponizes her deepest trauma responses.
Like what?
Things like arousal from violence, dissociation.
Yeah.
He relentlessly pushes her further into this state where she just can't trust her own mind, her own reactions.
It's psychological torture layered on top of everything else.
Absolutely.
And just when you think you kind of understand the torment, okay, it's psychological, it's maybe supernatural, it's her past, this story just completely flips the script regarding the Zero.
Yeah, the execution.
Right. We're told about his very public execution. It was streamed, monetized, the whole 9 yards, and Amethyst is just racked with guilt because she missed his final moments.
But
then, the massive reveal. Zero is alive. He wasn't executed.
And one of the most striking things here is how the narrative just shifts so seamlessly. It goes from that psychological horror, the ghostly visitation,
To something very real.
to a very tangible, escalating real-world threat. Because remember, messages from Zero's ghost accusing her of betrayal. They were sent before she knew he was alive.
Oh, right. That blurs the line completely.
It really does. It makes that transition from seeming supernatural torment to actual physical stalking feel incredibly smooth and terrifying. And then he starts this systematic, brutal campaign of terror against her.
Like what kind of
Harassment, gaslighting, home invasions, even brutal murders happen around her. Her home, which should be her safe space, becomes both a fortress and a prison.
So Zero is back, undeniably real, and then he starts putting Amethyst through. Well, the source calls it sadistic training.
Combat drills, bondage, psychological torture.
Ostensibly, it's meant to be for her survival, right? To fight back against whoever is after her.
That's the justification given, yes. But it's clearly, unequivocally, about control, deep control. And alongside this training, you have these intense, degrading sexual encounters that are just completely laced with those same power dynamics.
It sounds horrific.
It is, but what's truly fascinating in a very dark way is what this training actually does to Amethyst. It leads to this profound transformation.
From victim to
Survivor, but maybe something more. She learns not just to fight and escape, but to kill without hesitation.
Wow.
Through these brutal methods, Zero essentially teaches her to weaponize her trauma, to embrace her darkness.
So he's twisting her pain into a tool.
Exactly. And in this incredibly twisted way, the process binds them together. It creates this twisted intimacy. She literally becomes his partner in his project. Her entire identity is being reshaped by him, by this shared brutality.
So as they're trying to figure out who the real mastermind is behind all this conspiracy, their search leads them somewhere unexpected.
Deep underground, into the city's vast catacombs, described as this hidden labyrinthine underworld.
Okay, so things are about to get even darker, I take it.
Yes, this is where the truly devastating revelations start to come out. They discover Zero's father. He isn't just some criminal.
He's worse.
He's described as a criminal kingpin, running a horrific operation, a child assassin facility, and a snuff porn empire.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
But the betrayal, it goes even deeper. It turns out Amethyst's own mother, and even her psychiatrist, are complicit in this whole monstrous setup.
Her own mother.
The full horror of her childhood is laid bare. Abuse, experimentation, memory erasure, it is all orchestrated.
And the final twist.
Perhaps the most shocking truth revealed down there. Zero's father and Amethyst's mother are married.
Wait, what?
Yeah, which implies she was targeted by her own family, the very people who should have protected her.
That's unimaginable betrayal.
It really is. And it raises that important question, doesn't it? What happens to a person when the deepest betrayals come from those closest to you? When love itself becomes the weapon used against you?
The story must build to some kind of intense climax after revelations like that.
It does. It culminates with Amethyst attempting to kill Zero, setting him on fire.
Does she succeed?
She escapes through the catacombs after setting the fire. But then she makes another horrifying discovery: her murdered mother.
So the cycle just continues.
And then comes the ultimate inescapable confrontation. Not with Zero, not with his father, but with her doppelganger.
The one she sees in reflections.
Yes, described as the monster in the mirror. The story essentially ends with Amethyst facing herself, a self that has been completely transformed by all this trauma into the very thing she feared.
So no escape, really.
It feels like a chilling conclusion, yeah, signifying this unbroken, cyclical legacy of violence and profound betrayal. So what does this all mean for us reading it? I think it's a stark, really terrifying look at the legacy of deep-seated trauma.
And the potential.
The potential for an individual to basically become their own ultimate adversary, forever bound to the darkness they've endured. The novel doesn't just tell you a story, it makes you feel the weight of that transformation. It's visceral.
Wow. Okay. We have definitely taken an intense and really psychologically complex deep dive into I Will Break You by Gigi Sticks.
Definitely intense.
From that opening gothic fever dream through the profound betrayals, the manipulation, the obsession, and finally that unsettling transformation of identity, trauma, obsession, the unraveling of self. Those themes just run through every single page, don't they?
They absolutely do. It leaves you with this really profound sense, I think, of how extreme circumstances, how deep-seated trauma can fundamentally reshape who someone is.
Blurring those lines.
Yeah, blurring those crucial lines between victim and perpetrator. It really pushes you to consider, just how far someone might go or how far they might be pushed just to survive, and what pieces of themselves get left behind in that process.
It makes you think about the dark corners.
Exactly. There's always more to learn, isn't there, about the dark corners of the human psyche and the lengths people go to.
It's certainly a narrative that stays with you. Makes you think about the depths of psychological torment long after you put the book down, if you choose to read it. We hope you've gained some powerful new insights into this truly unsettling story and its implications. And yes, this is Read It or Skip It.